I might be a lizard.
What just happened?
It's possible.
Man, I should have done this. We should start a fucking podcast.
A podcast?
Dude.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Panther Racing Division podcast. And tonight we got Static Energy, 118, who is currently falling asleep. Fiskerton, who may or may not be AFK. Foxifier, your host. Gosu Noob, no, not really, and Sinister, who decided to start this bullcrap. Let's get underway. Now, Static, you were talking about neural net processes or some shit.
You know, you weren't on board for the whole downflow of the conversation. I would say that all the stories that people told earlier, right? Because the whole downflow of this conversation happened just from people sharing stories that were meaningful, right?
Actually,
Yeah.
Star Citizen.
Yeah, that was the original start. Interestingly.
Generation, and then somehow got to dementia and death.
But everybody opened up just a little bit in the in-between moment there where they were telling stories that were meaningful. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Going down all the way at the end to the meaning of the fucking universe is always a long fucking conversation and usually ends up in tears.
I don't know.
This sort of reminds me of the late nights with my old clan, and we'd always talk like this shit because you get killed in DayZ or whatever, and then you just like fucking don't want to play anymore, and then you just like hang around talking, drinking beers. And this one guy Snipes, he'd always have girl issues, man. The poor guy. And we'd always fucking try to give him like long-winded advice and like, just go for it, man. Just go for it. And he's like, nah.
That sounds like Smoothie.
Yeah, no.
I was talking
it's a weird
to
thing, man, because he actually Snipes sounds so like Smoothie. Like he's got to be the same dude. And he's in here just spying on me and reporting back to my old clan. That's probably what he's doing, and that's probably why he fucked up the season, taking me out all the time, because I left and he wants to get some revenge. So he keeps crashing into me.
Now you're really getting conspiratorial.
Hey, man, that's what the conversation was about all night.
See, that's
Deep universal consciousness and like, fuck, whatever else.
That's hilarious.
that kind of brings me back to like the days when I was with my clan. Shoot, like we used to play this game where we kind of like dressed up in white smocks and chased people around town. It's pretty fun.
But like togas.
You could
or like
you ever see
hospital things?
you ever see like that like the Charlie Brown Halloween special where like Charlie's like in like a sheet ghost? Just imagine that costume that he wore, but like with a point on top.
Oh,
Hey.
so, like,
But we didn't just do it on Halloween. That was the cool part.
so it's like you're like a KKK, but with that.
Hey, Gosu?
Whoa, I never said nothing about that.
Hey, man, that's what it sounds
Gosu's
like.
still alive?
Nah, I think
Gosu?
Gosu fell asleep. Remember that time he was fucking snoring? you guys remember that?
He was
fell
snoring on
asleep with
TeamSpeak.
Yeah, he left his mic open, or
Oh.
the mic was picking up him snoring.
Of course, I was there for that.
Probably passed out. I was just curious because I think Gosu, he's probably got a lot of interesting perception as to the possibilities that we could like be playing out, like very literally. I don't mean it like in the realms of philosophy, but
Like globally or nationally or.
globally, nationally, but like on a technological phase of reality. We talked some about all of the machinations of Tesla and his ideas and visions for a future reality for mankind in a past conversation. And I always thought that Tesla had like some grasps into that were really, really outer worldly. Like, I always thought it was interesting that people that seem to be able to invent things kind of out of the blue always said that they didn't really feel like they were inventing something as much as they were transcribing like a thought pattern that they seemed to receive from somewhere else. And it's not an uncommon thing from many inventors that they would talk about going into like certain states where they would be able to like access information or structures of information. And Tesla was one of those guys too, where he said like the majority of the stuff that came into his mind was not like he was inventing it on his own, but he felt that there were other avenues of exploration for information, right? And his vision of Earth was that we could have a free energy society that was essentially like a Type 2 civilization. That was his vision.
Type 1, you mean? Type 1.
Type 1, also Type 2. Like,
well, Type 2 is the you've harnessed the power of your sun.
Yes. But I think that's where he was going in his thought pattern.
Like a Dyson sphere?
Yeah, but the Type 1 civilization is interesting enough, right?
Yeah.
Like, to be able to
harness the power of a planet.
Yeah, have full control over ourselves, our thoughts, and our energy situation to the point where we can just be in full symbiosis with reality. And his vision, in his current state of understanding of reality, was like, well, I'm just going to broadcast free energy all across the earth because I actually know physically that I have the capability of doing that, like right now. And 100 years later, we're still burning oil in four-wheeled cars to drive ourselves around the surface. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like we didn't quite achieve the vision that he thought about. And I feel like we should have.
I think that has a lot to do with politics, though.
Oh, I was just about to get into that. And we still have douchebags in Charlotte, North Carolina who won't give Tesla dealer permits so they can sell cars.
Wow, really?
Dead serious.
That's horrible. I thought, but that's capitalism.
Oh, yeah, and you talk about, free capitalism, and the North Carolina state won't let them sell cars.
Yeah.
Well, it should be noted that the destruction and the absolute annihilation of that person's consciousness was based on capitalism.
Yep.
Tesla went insane. Tesla went absolutely insane and lost his shit because he was destroyed on a financial and a business level, right? He was attacked on all levels because they knew that they knew what his vision. They knew what his vision was, and they were like, "Son of a bitch! Like that doesn't sound very greedy. Like I can't keep that all for myself. That vision is for everybody, right?"
Yeah.
And that's why he went insane, and Edison was successful, and now we find ourselves in the reality that we do now.
Can you imagine if Tesla didn't invent alternating current, and we'd have to have fucking power stations every 10 miles?
Oh, it'd be a shitty world.
We probably have died off a long time ago from lung complications and fucking asthma and.
It'd be like a slightly altered version of the movie Idiocracy.
Or it'd be like we never left the industrial age. It'd be like downtown London in the 1800s.
Yeah, we
soot. And
we got stuck there, and we actually died as a result of it.
Yeah.
Alternating current. I always found that one tidbit really, really fascinating. That Tesla got erased from history completely, even though the effects of his mind, are to be seen everywhere.
Yeah, and he died in a hotel room.
He lost his
money.
mind. Like he literally lost his mind.
Probably
which
just
is
from
sad.
Depression and frustration. And
sure.
That'll kill about anybody.
Yeah.
He got he got scientifically shell shocked.
Yeah, why aren't these people taking my shit? It's good stuff, but they refuse. And there's people actively trying to suppress my knowledge for the sake of greed.
And that right there is what fucking bothers me the most that they can't even sell Teslas in North Carolina. It's all through the NC Division of Motor Vehicles, and that's all run by the dealership gurus.
You know what I fucking hate? How come car shopping can't be like every other fucking shopping? Like you just fucking why can't I just like fucking like go to Amazon and like fucking get a car from there and not have to deal with like dealership assholes who try to fucking scam me? Like why can't it be like that?
Not all dealerships are like not all car salesmen are assholes.
Most are. Let's be honest.
Most are. I mean, like, it was funny when I bought my car. I went to before the deal was final. I guess like I'd said like, oh, I'm definitely getting this car, but you know, just in case I can call it off. I went around looking for stuff, and this guy, I just happened to pull into this parking lot and was looking at a black BRZ, and the guy comes out and he's like. He immediately wanted to close the deal, and I didn't even know the price of the car. He wanted me to sign papers, and I had no idea what the price was. And I was just like, dude, get off my dick.
It doesn't matter what you tell them. I mean,
I know.
It's the same. It's the same with all of them. It's like, what do I need to do today to make you drive away with the car?
Yeah.
And it's
like exactly what he was saying.
And that's like their go-to line, and it's like, is that really all you got?
And instead of trying to like
if you could,
well, what if I do this? Well, what if I do this? I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up.
Like if they had any knowledge of the car they were selling, they'd be able to look at you and be like, okay, this dude knows like what this car is about. Like it baffles me that their mentality is so fucking one-dimensional. Like they don't use any knowledge to sell their cars.
I mean, I'm talking about my dad here, so I'm kind of biased, but I know how he operates. He like to be a good salesman. You don't have to be like a predator and like try to fucking seal every deal. You just have to be patient. Give the customer what they want. Ask them questions.
Be a fucking human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let me walk away today, and then call me a month from now.
That wasn't gonna happen because I already pretty much closed the deal on my car. But
I hate that like so much when like people like try to like get you to buy something that like. You're not sure on, or like you didn't initially ask for. Like, fucking, I mean,
like you're walking down the street and some guy wants to fucking like sell you on, and you're just like, oh, here we go.
Like you're walking through the mall. That's all it is.
Well, see, I was actually in the mall one time. God forbid, I fucking. It's gonna sound really fucking lame and like not even from this year, but I bought a T-shirt at Hot Topic, and it was a Rocket League T-shirt. It wasn't nothing emo.
That's right. No,
but
I bought like
respectable.
They have some cool stuff there, I gotta be honest. But I was there, and like I went up to the register. I only had $20 on me, so I could only buy like one T-shirt. And the dude kept on like going like, oh come on, we have like a deal right now where if you buy one T-shirt, you get the second one half off. Come on, dude, you don't even want a second shirt. It's gotta be one over here you want. And like he went on for like a fucking minute about the shirts, and I was just like, okay, dude, I know like corporate is probably telling you to like just push with this shit, but like. Most people don't fucking like it when you try to get them to buy something that they didn't initially ask for. So like, God, it was so annoying. Like, I hate that. Like corporate's stupid. Like, just be fucking real. Like, just tell me the deal. Like, all right, I don't want the deal. All right, end of conversation. But he fucking dragged it up for like a fucking minute. And like, I didn't want like your fucking Hello Kitty, Justin Bieber, Invader Zim. I like Invader Zim, but I didn't want anything else T-shirts.
I mean, part of it is like
it's psychological operations, bro. Like you got to understand that it's not for you.
It's for them.
It's for them.
Well, they're not helping themselves by doing that. They're pissing me off.
It doesn't even matter if it's truthful or you even identify that they're lying to you. Like
what they're counting on though.
They're trying. Yeah, they're trying to flip your mind, It's always psychological. So the pitch of sales is the truest lie in the history of business and mankind, right? Because it's always telling you something that's untrue, but it's convincing you of it, right? So, like, it's convincing you that you need this thing, right? That's the operation of sales at all times.
Like,
but, I mean,
it's like.
But what I was saying was like, yeah, they're programmed to do that, obviously, and it's in their best interest to be that way, because if they don't be that way, then they're not going to make, like, you know, their quotas, and they're going to get fired.
Sure. Especially if they're people who get paid based on performance, which is fucking terrible.
Why is that mentality still around when they could be so much better at it in a different way?
Like that
because they suck as human beings.
Exactly. Like they're like someone showed me earlier though. I need to speak to your manager haircut people.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. You and I, like, all intelligent people are beyond this, but there's like some other ulterior motive all along the line. There's some deep fucking shitty stuff going on there.
I feel like my girlfriend's sister, just the other night on Thanksgiving, she was talking about, she works at Bank of America, and she just started working there. Like, started working there like 6 months ago. Like, went through like 3 months of training. I'm like, how? First of all, 3 months of training is ridiculous to me. But anyway, like, after the first month, you know, the manager's telling her that, like, you know, she just went to him one day. It was like, hey, like, you know, I don't think I'm gonna meet my goals this month. You know, I'm 80% there, but I don't think I'm gonna make it. You know, there's like 2 days left in the month, and he's like, oh, well, I don't know, like, that's not good. And it's like, she just fucking started working there, and the manager's such a piece of shit. He's already, like, just automatically saying, like, oh, I don't know, like, that might not be good for you. And it's like, does this dude not have any brain capacity at all to, like, help himself by helping someone else do their job?
Yeah, instead of fear.
Yeah, like, that doesn't work. That might work for, like...
What's going on here?
Oh, dude, you missed a fuckload.
So, I was listening to this story, just recently from somebody else that was... We were kind of going over a lot of the same subject matter, but, like, it kept coming back to this, like, thing, which is, like, we can't quite understand how shit can go south on a technical level, like, even on an economical level in different countries. And they were telling this story about a banker in Finland, I believe. And it was kind of like a story of a banker that was like almost a whistleblower on his own experience of banking and how he grew up in that space and what happened to him. And the story was that he got to a certain level in his career that was pretty high level, you know? It's like this point in society where you're being paid a fuckload, you know? And you're responsible for a large cross-section of your company kind of situation. And he got, apparently, in his story, he was taken under the wing of another sort of sect of bankers, one very specifically. And he said that in communication, being indoctrinated up into this scene, this other person told him, do you have the intention of going all the way in this business? And
this is like the
told
Scientology
him,
moment.
Well, maybe on some level, but what he told him was, if you want to make it all the way to the top in this particular business, basically what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to leave your conscience completely behind, because there's this level of operation up here which is pretty fucking insane, And if you're a pretty regularly operating human being, you're not going to be able to operate up here normally. So he, in the story, he asks him outright, "Do you want to go there? And if so, I have access to that. I can teach you about this."
I can teach you to be a heartless cunt.
Yeah, exactly. I can teach you to have no soul and to operate without consequence. And I found it interesting listening to that.
Dude, that
That it
sounds like
seems
some sort of special forces fucking shoot, like first ask questions
Sure.
later type of
Sure,
mentality.
exactly. It's sort of like you can understand the philosophy behind those operational realms of business, and you can see the heartlessness behind so much in our world when you listen to that story, because you see itself in representation of so many different aspects of society, where it's like, holy shit, like, what is up with these dudes? Like, they were not thinking about us at all, kind of situation.
Yeah, it's too much of a good thing.
Yeah,
Unregulated capitalism.
Yeah, and banking is exactly that. It's like the ultimate control mechanism. You know, even in our even here in the U.S., I say own country. Canada.
Have a good night, guys.
Hey, dude.
Gozo wakes
Bye.
up from his slumber.
I'm still awake.
I guess we're kind of lucky. We dodged most of that American banking collapse in 2008 because we have small credit unions up here, but our banks it's the big six, and they're like nationalized banks.
I bank with the credit union.
Yeah.
Me too.
Because in my local area here, they pay dividends to its shareholders, which means that the bank itself exists because of the responsibility of its investors. So, I, at the very lowest level, can appreciate the reality of that. But that level that story was happening at, that's like Bank of America, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
That's the guys who, like, when the shit hits the fan, they pay the upper 0.4 percentile of their employees, like $500 million, and then they just call it like, oh, the shit hit the fan. It's all going down.
Well, what was that movie about the bubble collapsing with like the Selena Gomez in the tub? Or was it? No, it was Margot Robbie in the tub, talking about real estate investment and all that shit.
What, Wolf of Wall Street?
No. I forget. It was about the housing collapse, and
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And at the end of the movie, they were like, "Where did all the money go? Someone's got all the money, and it's the fucking CEOs. You know that they take all the money, like the boardroom people. They fucking took a severance package. They dipped.
The Big Short.
Yeah, that's it.
That was a good flick.
Yeah, but like someone's got the money. It didn't just evaporate. You know, like I don't know how, like the trillions of dollars that was lost.
Yeah, of course.
Well, not only the CEOs, but a large portion of that is in government and politics.
The 90-10 rule is in full effect every day.
Yeah.
Fucking 10% of the people make 90% of the money.
If Google's recording this conversation, we're already all fucking flagged right now. We're all fucked.
This conversation. This is going up on a podcast. I missed the best chunk of it, but
I mean, have you guys ever seen Joe Rogan and his podcast?
Yeah. Joe Rogan's been, like, I feel like he's lost his way a little bit along the way, but I always thought that he was an honest person in the way that he perceives his own reality. Yeah. And he's had a lot of awesome guests on his show, and I've heard a lot of really cool people speak there. I appreciate.
I think the like why people watch Joe Rogan is because he like most of us, he wants to learn, and he has all these cool guests on his show.
He's a
and
goofy.
He's goofy, and
he's a goofy and funny guy, but he also has this like deep element to him.
Yeah, and the way he talks, like people, you don't have to be a genius to sort of get. He has a way of simpling things down, because he gets these guests that present these vast, crazy
are
ideas.
Way smarter than him, and basically like he acknowledges
like fucking
his
Lawrence
own bullshit.
Krauss.
Yeah.
Lawrence Krauss. It's Lawrence Krauss. I'm curious now.
Dude, he's like
he's like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but white guy.
Yeah.
Well, I hate him automatically.
What? You hate Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Fuck yeah.
Why?
I think
we got a badass over here.
I think he's a scientific, mind-controlling bastard. I like Carl Sagan. Neil deGrasse Tyson is a fucking douche. He's
I've never heard
asshole.
him. I've never heard him speak on anything, but I always hear people like gravitate to him about shit. Like,
it's because
to me, that guy sounds like just today's cup of tea.
If you're the, he's like the science like now, but I feel
of the way he can articulate advanced principles.
Yeah, but a lot.
He looks like Al
is,
Sharpton.
Dude, the thing
is,
scientist. His peers can do it even better than him,
like
in
Bill
a scientific fashion. Bill Nye, he's not a scientist. Come on, man.
No, he's not a scientist. He's an engineer. Bill Nye the science guy, though.
Bill Nye
is the science guy, not the scientist.
Yeah, but he is a.
Been hard to take him seriously recently with that weird show.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Like Sinister. Like, I'm pretty sure that there are people in this channel that have better grasp on science than Bill Nye, the science guy. You know what I mean?
Bill.
Come on.
No,
Bill
Nye, the science
guy.
My point is not that. My point is that science is steered by a lot of institutions that have objectives, right? And I guess my problem with him and both of those guys is that they're fully entrenched in that system. And I'm not interested in the guys that are self-righteous, sort of like proclamations of what the current version of science is for them.
Yeah,
because he's always telling everybody exactly what it is all the time, right?
Yeah, but you know why he has to be like that? Because of the political climate that he lives in.
Dude,
you're either Republican or Democrat.
Yeah, but I feel he's still being disingenuous, He's not genuine about science the way that Carl Sagan was genuine about science. I feel that there's something in him that's got a huge ego.
Oh yeah, obviously.
But if you listen to other scientists who really are like just like explaining like peer-reviewed scientific papers of. And I don't even mean that you need to be peer-reviewed to have legitimate scientific reasoning. But there are tons of scientists out there that get no publicity whatsoever, that have had much more monumental achievements than people like him.
It's because they can't articulate, and like Neil deGrasse Tyson is more of a speaker than he is a scientist.
Exactly, which makes him a political scientist, doesn't it?
No, not really. A rhetorical scientist, maybe.
Well,
like in terms of rhetoric.
I'm not saying he's not a smart guy. I just don't believe the shit that comes out of his mouth. That's all.
But
I'm not saying he's smart, but he's fucking dumb.
Yeah. No, but he was Carl Sagan's predecessor, though. You know that, right?
So you're told.
Protege.
So you're told.
Well, I guess we can't ask Carl Sagan anymore, can we?
You couldn't because he's dead.
Yeah.
Clearly you can hear my attitude towards this, yeah? I don't like people who try to control narrative, and I feel like those are individuals who control the most important narrative, which is the narrative of truth. And in our modern society, truth equals science, right?
Yeah.
So if there's
obviously.
an individual who speaks from a tongue of science, you're speaking our current understanding of truth or reality. And don't get me wrong, I really think he's a very smart guy. He really is. And he's got a lot of interesting things to say, but I don't like the way that he controls the way the narrative flows with his science speak.
He has to be like that because he's the counterpoint to the opposite end of the argument.
What's the opposite, though?
Ignorance, what is it, the Creation Museum in Kentucky, that type of thing.
Oh, come on, that's not the opposition.
But what else? Okay, what's the opposition of science?
It can't be that ignorant. Like, seriously.
It's science and ignorance is what it's the opposition.
The only thing Neil deGrasse Tyson ever argues with is politics. It's not actually like, oh.
Well, yeah, because how do you change the world? You have to influence policy.
Sure.
You have to get out there.
But do you really think he's being completely genuine with like all of his arguments? Like, do you think he's telling you completely the truth?
No one can be completely genuine.
I disagree. I think you totally can.
I mean, okay, maybe the Dalai Lama was completely genuine.
I think Carl Sagan was pretty fucking genuine as a scientist.
But didn't he sleep around a little bit? I mean, I would too. But
I don't care about that though. I just care about the morality of things. You know?
No one is completely genuine, except for the Dalai Lama.
It's not the point here. The point here is that the reality around us is often scripted. And I don't like people participating as actors in the script to change the dialogue. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. If you disagree with that, I'm totally fine with it. But I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is a part of the script. And I think everything that he's done in his career has been disingenuous to the forwarding and progress of mankind. That's my opinion.
Okay. I just think that the script that you speak of is so many people are paying attention to it, despite how damaging it could be. So he's playing to the script. The same
for a guy like if we're talking about these famous fucking CNN scientists, is like Michio Kaku.
Oh,
he's also a fucking transhumanist douchebag.
At the beginning, it's the same thing. The way he articulates science is it's interesting and attractive to listen to. Like, I don't know, it's easy to listen to. You can grasp on it, but now it seems like he's gotten so used to going on the show and blowing people's minds that he does it. He blows everything out of proportion now. So maybe that's if you think the same about Neil deGrasse Tyson, I could probably understand where you're coming from.
It's just my opinion of that trifecta of scientists. I don't speak highly of them because I've never learned anything from them that I felt was valuable.
I think they're more geared towards kids, though, to be honest. Kids,
yeah, which is fine.
Teens.
I actually have no problem with that, If it's just like you're teaching people about a certain part of science, but I kind of think that they're being icons within that realm, and if you're going to be a fucking icon of science, you better be worth your wits, you know what I mean? And I think they're being disingenuous on that level. So, yeah, again, just my opinion, but I think all three of them probably have their value within their own categories of science, even within their peers. But they're no Einsteins, that's for sure. There's certainly no Teslas, or even Edisons.
Well, I mean, Elon Musk is pretty close. Or he's getting there, at least.
Elon Musk is like 10 Neil deGrasse Tysons put together on a
Even
imagination.
Even though the poor guy can't do public speaking very well.
But on the level
He's
of
pretty bad, isn't he?
I
imagination,
feel so sorry for him because you could tell he's nervous all the time.
but on the level of imagination and being effectual to his reality, he is 100 times more effective. Because no Neil deGrasse Tyson ever landed a fucking rocket backwards.
Yeah.
Back onto planet Earth. Elon Musk did that shit. So, you know.
Yeah, acting non verba. Actions, not words.
Yeah, but can he drift that rocket?
Yeah.
That's what matters.
But can it run Crisis? I don't think so.
Can it? Nani? Kansei drift? Nani?
I haven't even made... It's weird. I haven't even made my mind up about him completely. But I like him. I like him based on one particular video where he was questioned about a problem that was occurring in Australia, which had to do with energy issues.
I think you've said this already tonight. I think
No, I didn't. I did not talk
sure.
about this tonight. No,
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
not.
No, back me up. You said something about Elon Musk talking about energy tonight earlier.
I haven't talked about...
We did, but not about Australia.
No, I haven't talked about Elon Musk at all tonight.
Yeah,
Related to this thing.
We have before. But go on.
We have before, but not tonight.
No, tonight we talked
Yeah.
about it.
I won't repeat myself if you don't want to hear it.
No, you're not repeating yourself, but we have talked about him.
Sure.
Anyway, continue. I just said
It's fine. It's just I notice that even though he has like this sort of semi-autistic tendency towards transhumanism, which is a highly intelligent thought pattern, in my opinion, he is a very emotional person.
Oh, well, now you're repeating yourself.
yeah, that's exactly. I think you just copied and pasted your thoughts.
Well, I would, because that's what I thought before. I'm
Yeah, I know.
copying and pasting the exact thought that I had when I saw that.
Yeah.
So if you heard that from me, I'm sorry.
The news is
Repeating
out.
myself.
Static's a genuine person.
But that
He's got
motherfucker!
a crush on
That
Elon
motherfucker!
Musk.
No. You know what I have a crush on? I have a crush on people that can cry about something and be genuine.
Did you watch that video I put in the thing a long time ago when we talked about that?
What?
It's about,
what were we
Elon-
talking about? What were we talking about when
I
I?
talking about Elon Musk was being emotional and he can be genuine, and I posted a video of him. He was upset because
Well, how the
Neil
fuck-
Armstrong.
Yeah, but how the fuck can you have a person that's sort of has a tendency towards transhumanism also be like very human? It cracks me up, the irony in that whole thing. But regardless of what his thoughts I completely disagree with, I still kind of like find myself being like, he's
Why you
still
disagree
here. Because there are things that he's going down the pathway of thought patterns which I don't necessarily agree with all of it. That's all.
Like
you know?
what?
Well, it's some of this stuff that has to do with the idea of merging with, unhuman consciousness. Like he talked about this. He gets uncomfortable too when he's asked questions like that, which I can totally understand. It would be an uncomfortable conversation. But those are the real deep questions.
Like upload into the Matrix type deal?
Yeah, that kind of shit. Like where he's asked questions about what could happen like 1,000 years, 1,000 years down the road in our history if AI develops. The questions that are asked of him is like, well, what happens if we allow AI to develop unrestricted?
Well, let me ask you this, Static. If you, let's say, hypothetically, if you could be uploaded into a simulation or an ongoing sort of like Matrix type deal where there was no consciousness break, so the copy that was made was you and not a copy of you.
What,
So
you mean
were
like
transferred-
being in an echo chamber?
What do you mean?
Where you're, constantly being in a self-indulgent reality where it's echoing upon you.
Oh, like... no. Let's say
that's called social media.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly
what
it is.
Exactly. An echo chamber.
It's not like that. It's not like that. I'm talking about how like you were to let's say something. This is basically a plot of a game. That's what I'm asking. But if
go on.
Basically in the game, a comet hits the Earth, and there's like only like 20 people left, and they choose to upload themselves into a server and launch the server into space on a satellite to live out for all eternity, basically. But the problem with them is that it's copy paste, not cut and paste with their consciousness. So they all get left behind, but their consciousness gets moved forward. Let's say that doesn't happen, and your consciousness is continued into this like server or computer, and your body's left behind. Would you do that?
So that's a really interesting question for me, because I struggle sometimes with what the idea of us actually is.
I just think it's just a bunch
and
of
the reason
neurons. It's just chemical connections and
sounds like dreaming to me.
That's just a scientific machination. Like that picture you posted is just perfection, It's a scientific perfection. It's a very definite reality of what we can perceive. But my problem with that idea that we can transfer our reality into another is that I don't understand what this one is in the first place.
Yeah.
So I can't actually say, without being a complete disingenuous asshole,
if this is all real or not.
If this is all real or not, even that, but I can certainly not say that I understand what I probably theorize the rest of the universe to be, which is something that I'm not even fucking close to understanding yet.
Or probably will ever.
Well,
can anyone?
I don't know. I feel like the connection to universal creation, like I've had moments in my time where I've connected to something where, like, for brief moments, I've had a glimpse into what you would call alternate spaces of reality.
Well, we're all just stardust, right? We're all just atoms and parts of exploded stars.
Yeah, but when you get into that stuff, that more, and this isn't even.
By the way, that was a Neil deGrasse Tyson quote.
Sure, but this isn't even stuff coming from my experiences, but just from my understanding of a lot of other cultures. There is a very real thing that is a connection to a sort of spirit or a base of knowledge which we can access in our realm, right? So there are people in our past, not only people, but civilizations, whole civilizations in our past, that may have had access to connections to this higher realm that might be a little bit higher than where we're at now. And I entertain the idea that maybe we're actually on the lower spectrum.
Which is its dimensions.
Well, yeah, if you want to think of it in terms of a top-down sort of situation where, like, the top is the highest and the bottom is the lowest, and vibration and all that bullshit that you could attach to all that, it might be that. But certainly there are phases. Because a lot of what history tells us about ancient civilizations is that we've had a rise and we've had a fall. not only of civilization, but of consciousness. And both go hand in hand in some ways in our realm. So that's kind of my personal assessment of our recent past. I don't have any real grasp of what's beyond that because I've certainly just don't know it, you know? Like my current version of understanding of reality is based on just everything that I know up until now. But I think that things in our past are pretty important to learn about because just based on this idea that we've had rises and falls in civilization, just going up and down like a heartbeat, you know?
Yeah.
And if the heartbeat just goes on for millions of years, you know, that's the experience of civilization. We have a rise in this spiritual attenuation to the universe, and we have a fall where we all want to kill each other and we have fucking politics and division all the time, you know what I mean? But I think I tend towards the side that it'd be nice to be in the realm where we're on the higher end of the spiritual side, where we have a better connection to the universe, which is probably a place where we have no politics, certainly no division politics at all.
Yeah, so what you want is like the sort of Star Trek golden age of humanity type.
Not even on a technological level.
No. But like the whole politics of Star Trek is like there's no poverty, there's no.
I wouldn't say that. Like
I watch much Star Trek, but that's what I hear.
Well, that's just what the idea of a utopia is, right?
Yeah, that's what it like the whole idea of Star Trek is that.
But I don't mean
transcended into this.
I don't mean a utopic. I don't mean a utopic society from the perspective of where we're at now. I mean we actually see what it's all about. Right? Because currently, I can tell you for a fact, I don't fucking know. Like I can give you best guesses based on my theories, right? But I think there are places where we can exist in reality where we actually know.
Or like on fucking acid and DMT and shit?
Nah.
Because a lot of the ancients, that's what they did.
Bro, like, what if, like...
Well,
like
they didn't use it as, like, a drug. They used it as, like, a religion.
Like
what if, like, when we're high, we're actually seeing what's real? Oh, man. Gotta say, they might be a bunch of right-wing nut jobs down there, but them Alabamas sure know how to make some good kush.
That's why I like you, Foxy. You're a funny guy. No shit, though. There's some weird things about our interaction with reality that give us information about this higher sort of situation.
Yeah, but
and
what you're receiving is like, how can you trust your senses though? That's like another.
Because it's like sometimes it's like pure love, right? So they're I know it sounds stupid, dude, but there are like whole villages who have reported healings that come through, you know, that kind of realm, which is an interdimensional experience, where a shaman has introduced this weird technology of a fucking strange drug, which apparently was given to them by the spiritual nature of the earth. Because if you really investigate that heavily, that's a super interesting topic. Things like ayahuasca, like, there's no way you stumble upon something like that by accident. Things like that, or mushrooms that grow out of the fucking earth itself, which seem to have some strange connection to this higher vibrational thing. It sounds really fucking hippy-dippy, but I've had some experiences with that would tell me that realm is real. You know, like there's something there that I should explore. And it's certainly more interesting than the politics of the standard Earth realm that, all we have here is division politics, you know what I mean? Like, if I had a choice, like, I'm gonna choose that fucking crazy-ass shit over division politics every time.
Yeah, what happened to common sense and, like...
Well, common sense is also
Not so
valid.
common.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good comment. But what do you mean by that? Like, have you...
No, like... I don't know. It seems like... I mean, probably more so in the States, but up here, like... If you're a conservative, you believe this. If you're a liberal, you believe this. Like, there's no common sense. There's no moderates.
It's all the same.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that,
I mean, either. It's fucking bullshit.
I wish that idea didn't even exist.
It's just like teams.
It's like, if we were to evolve, division politics have to become a completely extinct idea.
You know what? I think that's holding us back.
Well, yeah, I mean,
It really
all
is.
that division just goes right back into the consumerism mentality.
Yeah, which is just mind...
Yep.
It's fucking mind control.
Like, they just want you to believe what they believe, so
Divide
you
and
buy the
conquer.
shit that they want you to
Oh,
buy.
they don't believe it. Trust me,
No,
buddy.
obviously.
They do not believe it.
They're snake oil salesmen.
Well,
Exactly.
exactly.
Dude.
They're selling their snake oil by by telling you this shit.
But it's important to make that distinction, that the knowledge that they have is not the thing that they're trying to convince you of.
No.
Because a lot of these people are pretty fucking smart.
If not the smartest. And then they're taking advantage of the system. For their own personal gain. Like the condo builders up in North Carolina.
Sure. So, we do our own thing, and we have our own conversations, and we make our own awareness about it all.
Yeah,
And-
like right now.
Exactly. And that's
Here's a
why...
good spot to close.
Excellent. Perfect spot.
On condos.
On condos.
Condos.
Fucking consumerism.
Fucking salesman.
Yep.
Fucking Obama.
Salesman of knowledge.
I want all of you this week to go spend any excess cash you have on a car.
I'm gonna sell my G27
There you go.
fucking car.
Shoot. Would a G25 be anywhere near that much? Because I have a G25.
I'll look it up right now.
I mean, it's the same as G27, just 2 buttons instead of 6.
Send your sim rig salesman over there. Be careful, he might tell you it's worth $5,000 and only give you $200 for
Oh
it.
fuck!
What?
Logitech G27 Kijiji for
Kijiji.
Kijiji?
yeah Kijiji, Brantford, Ontario. Kijiji, $150. Used Logitech G27. That guy is losing a whole bunch of money.
Oh boy.
Buy it.
Wanted mint.
$150?
Yeah, $150.
Good deal.
I'll buy that
There
shit.
was a year ago, legit. There was a G27 on the Goodwill online store, and it auctioned
hilarious?
off. Yep, it auctioned off for like $50. I didn't get it because I already had the G29, but still.
G27s are like becoming like a legit sim racing cult following.
God.
Well, because
Isn't that
they're
weird?
like, for a lot of people, they're like the first. It was like the first like wheel that like gave them the H pattern and the clutch pedal and the 900 degree rotation.
Dude, the market is saturated right now. They're really
True.
cheap right now.
Yeah,
But-
they went down a little bit, but you can get one from a brand new one from Japan for $989.
Well, sure you could, but like this is the sales thing. It's like based on all the experience,
demand.
right? Because like these fucking wheels are all still working.
Yeah.
Like it seems like none of them have really busted since like 2012. They're very like I bet their margin is like 80% effectiveness over 10 years almost.
It sucks because you now know that like if Logitech ever comes out with like a new wheel, they're probably gonna make it less. They're probably gonna make it less like time efficient because they know like how long like their previous wheels have lasted people.
Oh, of course. Of course, but, thank God they didn't, at least in our time. Because I've had... This is fucked up to even think about this. I am racing the same wheel that I started out sim racing on, and I haven't changed because it's just been good all along.
When did you start sim racing?
2011.
Like right when R Factor... No. Yeah.
Or no. R Factor 2013.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, in 2011, but I was doing some stuff even before then. But before then, I didn't have the exact same wheel that I have now. And the funny thing is, before that, I had another wheel, which technically would be the G25. And at the time, I was in Germany. And I moved back to the US somewhere in that jumble of time. And that G25 got lost in time, reality, space. I don't even know what the fuck happened to that wheel.
It transcended into an above dimension.
It probably
It moved into the fourth dimension.
No, it probably ended up in a dumpster somewhere.
That's probably much more likely than transcending into an higher dimension.
And the fucked up thing is, I think that 25 actually still worked at the time.
I think the secret to moving up dimensions lies within a dryer, because where the fuck do all those socks go? That's the fucking real question right there.
It's good to have comedy. I tend to be attracted to comedians of reality.
Whoa, easy there, buddy. I know we've been drinking, but
no.
Swing that way.
I don't mean in a sexual way.
I know.
Come on,
I'm just busting your balls.
Yeah, seriously, comedy is shit.
I think it's been sort of theorized that comedy is a way of the reason why comedy is a thing and why people have evolved to be funny over other people is it's an evolutionary trait, because the funny people always get laid and the serious people don't. And it's also it's a way to attract a mate, to make them laugh.
I think comedy is like some bizarrely altered version of that more base element of connection and love. Like, strangely, in our society, though, comedy can be super fucking dark, too.
Yeah.
Like, you see a lot of comedians out there operate right on the fringe of, like, acceptable.
Well, because it's just like, shoot. I feel like it seems like comedy just like gets more darker over time, because like you look at like I guess like the old Simpsons episodes, like season 1 and 2 of Simpsons, people are like, oh, this is shocking, this is whatever the hell. It's like nowadays Simpsons, at least like back then Simpsons is like fucking like kids television practically.
Yeah, so in just in direct response to what you just said there, I always like, because he said, and I completely concur with his his whole assessment of that, is that the words themselves matter not at all. It's the intention and the meaning that you push into them that matters, right? So you can say something with words that you don't mean, but you can do it conversely with completely different language that also means something, either of a positive and funny agenda or a sinister and dark agenda, which can, right? So like, Carlin, like, he was totally on that shit. Like, he understood that the media industry was dark as fuck. And like, his whole career was based on making people laugh. But he did it from a perspective of the most genuine thing that he could imagine. And I always loved Carlin for that, because he always like brought out in all of his skits like the darkest shit that you could see in reality, but he would also make it funny because he was honest about it.
And to go back on what Foxy was saying about how like the earliest Simpsons episodes are like neutered. If you go back even further, though, I don't know how the show was made. Zach, you ever seen All in the Family?
Dude, some of that
I haven't
shit.
seen any of it.
How was that show made in the 70s? Like, that was crossing so many lines, but it's a fucking classic. And we're still talking about the same shit today.
Wait,
so
was that like
weird.
the show where like you had like that one like little black
Archie.
midget guy and
No.
Oh no.
Dude,
And
I've been noticing that when I look back in time in media, that I've been finding things that I didn't understand then that I'm now finding like new meaning to.
Mhm.
Have you guys ever had this experience where like you actually saw
like
the
watching a Pixar movie and like
dude like seeing
getting
the
adult
original
jokes now?
yeah well like seeing the original version of something as it was playing out, but now looking back in time at the same thing and being like, holy shit, how did I miss that kind of situation?
Yeah.
Like there was an actual hidden structure of meaning in that whole storyline that I missed completely. I've been noticing that lately, looking back specifically in movies, and a couple examples of music, because I'm like, I love music, dude. Like, music is the shit to me. Like, much more so than movies, because the audio realm to me is much more, I don't know, physically available, and it's more important to me. So in lyrics, even, and the same thing, like stories can be told in lyrics of songs the same way you can write a Simpson episode or, whatever TV show you're talking about.
Like, if you listen to a Linkin Park song now, then
in the end,
you
it doesn't
fucking
matter.
grew up listening to them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Like,
it's so
I could
different.
definitely see why that guy killed himself.
Because
But that's-
after all that, it didn't even matter in the end.
That's some sad shit when you look at all the guys that got burnt by those industries.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seriously, like, got really fucked up. And
Yeah.
either by drugs or the people they were surrounded by. But basically the environment that surrounded them ultimately led to their demise. And
Michael Jackson.
yeah, absolutely.
Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, I mean,
This theory is about Michael Jackson.
like, and I find it weird also that, like, when these artists, like, pass away, I don't know, like, I find myself listening to their music. Like, I listen to every song they ever made, and I'm like, well, shit.
When
That guy was fucking good. Like, when George Michael died.
when
Like, that dude was a flamer, but his music was fucking good.
dude, I had the most intense experience of Michael Jackson that you could ever have, which is strange because like I never really was like into him all throughout time. But when he died, I happened to be at a music festival, and it was like a really fucking... I've talked to a whole bunch of people about this experience that happened back then, and they all kind of concurred, at what took place was just like this very strange, magical thing in time. And when Michael Jackson died, there were like at least 15 different people at that festival that did some really epic covers on songs that just random different songs in his career. And I was thinking about it afterwards about how that had like a pretty serious like psycho-spiritual effect on me coming out of it, because the intensity of like the togetherness that happened at that place and time was so profound that everybody remembered it in a loving manner, which is really, just typical hippie sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it
That's
actually
that's
happened.
Like when I watched like the compilation of the 2010 Canada America game in the Winter Olympics. And
Yeah, it's just
there's
that
like the compilation of everybody just like cheering and hugging each other.
yeah, it's just
It's
this
like a national unity.
Exactly, dude. It's like this mass event of togetherness that was spurred on, strangely, by the death of a person.
Or a puck going into a net.
Yeah, it could be anything, but for some reason everybody came together and identified with something at the same time, and it happened to be like a legitly awesome thing. Like everybody knew it because everybody felt great. Like you couldn't even say anything otherwise. Even if you didn't give a shit about Michael Jackson, it didn't make a difference because you were there and you felt like the whole thing going down there. And I always thought that was a funny story to me because I was never like a huge Michael Jackson fan. But after that happened, I was like a huge Michael Jackson fan. It was like this moment in time where I was like, oh shit, that son of a bitch was the king of pop.
Alright, let's see if we can
Funny
continue
moments.
this to when the sun goes up.
Oh, you leaving 118? Getting tired?
That's the thing, though. Like, it usually takes like something like drastic to like unite people. It usually takes a tragedy to unite people.
Well, let's talk game.
I don't know. There's a lot of tragedies that have been going on and no uniting, so I don't agree with that.
Well, I guess like maybe like I don't know. It just seems like something usually bad has to happen before something good happens.
Is that what it seems like, or is that what you actually think?
That's what it seems like usually.
Just based on experience.
Just like experience, observation.
Well, it took the Army of Darkness to invade Gondo for them to work together with Rohan.
What? Dragon Ball Z?
No, fucking Lord of the Rings.
I never watched Lord of the Rings, so I wouldn't know. Nah.
Dude, that's like a pulp. Oh my god.
I never cared for it. I never watched Harry Potter either. Just didn't care for it.
Foxy?
I mean, you can forget Harry Potter, but Lord of the Rings is
I don't know.
It's pretty alright.
I watched Star Wars a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah,
That-
Star
if that
Wars
counts.
and Lord of the Rings, I think.
It's actually the same story.
Yeah. That's it like it's the hero story. Like, hold on, I'm gonna go. It's like
One of like the 7 story types and whatnot.
yeah.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah.
The hero's journey.
Yeah.
Call to adventure, refuser of the call, supernatural aid, crossing the first threshold, belly of the whale. Yeah. It's like that's the hero's journey.
I like that 118's in quotation, or in...
Falling asleep.
Yeah, well, not falling, but felling.
Felling asleep.
Falling asleep.
Yeah, like a tree falling.
Yeah, you
Or
fell asleep.
felling it.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's a mistake, but it's actually correct.
He's felling asleep. Asleep being a noun.
Interesting.
Who is this asleep, and how do you fell one?
You guys ever cut down
Oh yeah.
trees before? Isn't that a trip?
Dude, I fucking cut down a 90-foot pine tree before.
I feel like the moments in my life where I've cut down massive trees have been like huge. Like the consequence of like it sounds stupid, but like I've gotten good at it too, you know, like learning how to use chainsaws really well and like knowing how to do it properly, like
Yeah.
but the consequence, the impact, like when a tree that large hits the ground and it feels like a fucking earthquake,
It's crazy.
it's pretty fucking cool.
Dude, so my dad's side of the family is from Mississippi, and you know, there's like 88 acres out behind my dad's house, and you know, we used to go back out there, and there's a fucking creek that runs through the property. And these goddamn beavers live on that shit.
Beavers.
So they would dam it up and create this huge lake, like on the backside of the property, into
Amazing,
like
like giant rodents can fuck everything up.
What's that?
It's amazing how
Beavers.
badly giant rodents could fuck everything up.
Oh god, dude, they fuck shit up, alright. But every summer for like 10 years we would go to Mississippi, and like that was like our pastime, was to go back there and fuck their shit up.
Could you imagine if beavers took over the earth like we did?
It'd be Waterworld, dude.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
No, it wouldn't.
No, it sucks. But I swear, I shit you not. We go back there and we bust like 4 or 5 dams on this creek, and they're all, like 20, 30 feet wide. The next day, every dam was fucking back up.
Do you think from their perspective, though, that, like...
You're destroying our home!
Oh, totally. But the next 3 days, we made some phone calls, and we got a guy out there with some tannerite.
Oh, God.
And we fucking blew up the top dam and just fucked their shit up. It was amazing. Like,
that has to be the most hick story I've ever heard in my life.
Dude, I don't know how much tannerite it was, but I remember we walked like probably 100 feet away, and he had one of the, those big rectangular batteries?
Yeah.
That are like super huge, like as big as like 2 coffee mugs on top of each other.
Yeah,
Yeah, like in the movie What About Bob?
Yeah, I don't know about that movie, but so we walk like 100 feet away with one of those batteries and just touch the wires to it, and the dam blows up fucking massively. And I remember like 15 seconds later, it was just raining mud. It was the most epic shit. And water, like a waterfall just flowing through. We came back the next year. It was 3 times bigger.
Oh, they're persistent little bastards.
Those motherfuckers. My dad shot a couple of them. Took their pelts, made a jacket out of it for my mom.
He didn't make like a badass like
a fucking hat.
Yeah, like a.
I think he does have one.
Dude.
What's the guy's name? Davy Crockett.
Yeah, I think my dad has one of those.
I have a couple of people in my family that bought a large plot of land in Canada, and part of the exchange was that.
Beaver pelts? That's fucking some old school shit.
Wow.
Not beaver pelts.
Oh.
Beaver hats.
Oh.
Hats?
It's fucking hilarious.
Was there maple syrup involved too?
Nope, just the hats. It was like a handshake.
Wow.
It was like
Hell
this
yeah.
transaction took place and we're exchanging pelts.
But I mean, yeah, what you were saying though about the trees, like to get back to some of these places, we'd have to cut down big ass trees because we had this old school, like real old tractor.
Dude, I really wonder about like having memory of different natural places in times here, and if any of us have gone through that, because right now, like all of this stuff about like old growth forests, like we cut most of them down. Like
Yeah.
certainly I don't.
Illegal now? You can't
Like,
cut
I-
down old growth trees.
Yeah, sure. Like I think it's an amazing event, like to do something like that. But at the same time, the preservation of nature on that level.
Yeah, everything lived like 150, 200 years.
Yeah, dude. Like when you're in old growth forests, that shit feels completely different than when you're in something that's like 10 years old. It's like that place has its own like knowledge about it, you know.
You ever see
Yeah,
that?
like
You ever see that forest in Japan, like where everyone commits suicide?
Ooh, that's some creepy shit down there.
Yeah, but that looks like some ancient fucking forest.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. No, completely.
no, I know what you mean though, like because the land that we own down there has like you can tell the forest has been there at least, I want to say 60 plus years.
Yeah.
But there's
And it
still
feels-
corn. There's still corn rows in the land. It used to be an open field with corn.
Crazy.
And like, you stand at the back of the house and you just think like this used to just be straight open field, and it's not. It's a fucking huge forest with oak trees that look like they're like 100 years.
In Mississippi, you said?
Yeah.
That could have been part of the Dust Bowl. When that whole shit went down.
It's like middle of Mississippi. The Dust Bowl's more like Midwest. Like,
oh,
I don't know, but
because that field could have been abandoned and then.
Yeah, but there's a lot of history in that environment.
There's so much history down there.
It makes it feel so much real, so much more real when you're in a place where you perceive something. Where it's like you don't really understand where that comes from, but it's like this place has something, When
I went to Italy and went to the Vatican, and there's like this statue, I forget what saint, but the thing you do is like you rub this guy's foot for good luck, and the stone, I have no idea, it's a tradition, but the stone, it's marble and it's worn down because of like. Hundreds of years of like people just rubbing this foot.
I love places where there are rails that are made of materials that are either quickly wearing or either slowly wearing, but just by walking down them how many steps and how many passes of a person created that thing. So like when you walk down a stone stairway in Europe, and you feel the dip in the step, which meant that literally millions of steps got stepped on that step. You get this instant appreciation for history.
That's a lot of steps.
Look at this.
Yeah, there's a crazy feeling of like I'm not the first person that's been here.
Yeah.
Look at this. This is in Pompeii.
And your mind just gets like instantly transported because of it. Like you understand your place, and that so many people came before you, maybe having similar or dissimilar thoughts.
Are those ruts from like carts?
Yeah, from cartwheels.
See, yeah, that's shit. Static's talking about.
Yeah.
Well, that's like Roman roads.
Yeah, I know, but like so many carts went through there that it wore the stone.
Yeah, that's... Yep. How many journeys do you have to take?
Yeah, I know.
You may never know.
And then someone... the funny thing with Pompeii is, like... They had a sense of humor before... before the Christians moved in, like... I don't want to offend anyone, but when Christians moved in, everyone got all serious. No offense taken. Everyone got all serious, right? But... back before Christians, like, you'd find people schlonging, fucking, like, drawing dicks on everything. Romans, man.
Schlonging. I love how that's a word for that.
Schlonging. Like, they carve a penis into a fucking marble statue, and it's still there, like, 2,000 years later. Some fucking guy had a sense of humor.
They're just trolling from 2,000 years in the past.
Yeah, the irony that the trolling has never stopped.
Yeah, I know. The dank memes. The dankest memes.
They just couldn't quite transmit it fully to us.
Trolling never changed.
I want to meet the person who came up with a fucking meme.
Like the first meme.
Like what the
fuck, dude? Like the first meme. Like fucking Indiana Jones.
You really gotta do some digging for that, to be honest. You really gotta do some digging.
The first meme is on top of an altar created by a god.
Like who thought of the idea of let's just make fucking like
fun
a picture reality? And just convey an idea with fucking 3 words. Like holy shit. Let's just simplify this paragraph into a picture and a word.
I'm gonna Google the first meme.
I wonder what the even more so than what the first meme would actually be, because it probably is not a thing that we invented recently. What's the language back then? Like where was the word meme actually invented? because the word meme must have come from an earlier meaning for us.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know this.
Because meme also clearly is similar to mime, you know, in the English language. So English is very intermixed with about 5 other European languages, which probably have, you know, a long history down to its origin. So it'd be funny to track the word all the way to its origin.
Ancient Greek.
Oh boy.
Meme comes from mime.
Well, mimic. Mimic is also
it's from imitated thing, or to imitate.
Yeah,
mime.
Which is the word mimic, mime, like that's all on the same spectrum.
Oh, Richard Dawkins coined the word meme.
Who's that?
The biologist turned atheist turned guy who insults religious people.
This is funny that I don't know this, but what's the difference in spelling between the word meme and the word mime, like in its historical sense?
That's what it like. It comes from an ancient Greek word that's spelled M-I-M-E-M-E, and they just basically took the M and the I and removed it to shorten it up.
Okay, so it used to be a longer word.
Yeah. Meme.
We sound like really lame right
now. The millennial
the
definition is a humorous image, video, piece of text that is copied and spread rapidly by internet users. But we knew that already.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the other aspect of that I think is awesome. Exploration of language. I do that so little with people anymore. I
love entomology, finding out where things come from.
Dude, I've been talking to my dad about this a lot lately because he's starting a podcast about learning languages and teaching language in its current form, like, well. And I think the origins of languages are fucking fascinating to me. And it's super fascinating since I speak German fluently, and I hear words in other languages that I don't speak, but I recognize these words, like, sometimes. Like, there have been times when I've been traveling throughout Europe, and I'm listening to somebody speak in a different language, and I recognize pieces of phrases, because I have a direct descendant of a part of my language which attaches to theirs. And that shit fascinates the hell out of me, you know, because you listen to it and
Dutch,
it's like
Scandinavian to a certain point.
Oh, that stuff super strong in that direction.
Yeah.
But it's just such a cool thing, like.
And also most Indo-European languages, like 90% of the world's languages are Indo-European, obviously, and they all have the same type of structure. And in finding a language that doesn't conform to Indo-European structures, like ma and pa, you know how many times in history ma and pa have been used in languages to, you know, talk about their mom and dad, like pater and mater, like all that stuff. It's crazy. It's like some things continue, like,
you know,
since the dawn of language to today.
I mean, you know what I learned in school is, like, you know, languages are dying too.
Yeah.
Like, well, I forget the number, but there's, like, languages that die, like, every day.
Sure, but at the same time, we have the potentiality to create that at the same level, right? All of the languages come out of creation. So at some point, there was a person that was trying to translate a thought or a feeling into a sound, and they invented something that you could identify with. That is language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like,
could you even imagine? I mean, can you really imagine that far back in the history of us, where we
before
went
there were
from
6,000 languages?
Well, where we went from a very crude version of communication to an advanced version of communication.
Well, even animals communicate by sounds. And we're just animals.
Well, there are arguably many levels of communication.
Well,
But the actual verbalized level of communication is certainly scientifically accessible
it's
on all
important
levels.
To communicate, like you can't strategize, you can't assign tasks, you can't, like, society requires that people communicate to function at the very basic level, and like writing stemmed from the need to count grain.
But tribes of animals have been operating in societies all along with a different level of communication, you know? There are all different levels of these things.
Like, I don't know. Calls and like...
Sure.
Whatever.
I'm just referring to the history of our particular language spectrum. Like, where
to go back to what Nona said, though, about dying languages, I think the capability of saving these languages now is much greater.
Man. Here, I'm gonna throw a thought bomb out there.
Oh, fuck.
What if it's not about saving dying languages, but rediscovering lost knowledge and lost languages?
Yeah, that's one of the main things. Like, I don't know if you guys watched that video on Etruscan that I posted in Slack before, but they only know advanced terms that have been found, like directions on how to do religious like ceremonies, but you can't say, they don't know how to say yes or no in Etruscan. They know how to, like, they've translated religious procedures and, you know, formal governmental doctrines and stuff, but they don't even know how to say hello or goodbye in Etruscan.
Well, there are certain concepts which would be alien in certain forms of language, which goes back to what the history is. Like, where is it that we actually decided that we could say no to somebody? You know, where did we invent that word in the history of languages?
Yeah, way before there was anything written down.
Well, that gets back to like some Stanley Kubrick style cinematography. You know, like you're going way back to the fucking beginning
Bump
there.
some sticks together. And
Yeah, it's like
fuck.
when did we decide that we knew how to do shit? Basically.
Yeah, can you imagine like what event took place for someone to go no, and then that person that was doing it to them stopped? Can you imagine the first time that happened?
Not at all. I mean, I can imagine it, but I'm certainly wrong.
It was probably something stupid. Some guy was like
picking his nose.
Yeah.
Well,
think about
how like monkeys even currently use tools for like extracting insects from the ground with these really intricate it's not too hard to imagine that on some level we operated there.
Oh.
And that we've just come.
Some people still do operate there.
Full circle.
Some people still do operate that way, man.
Well, maybe that's our destiny. We're going full circle.
Yeah.
Getting smarter and dumber.
God.
Fuck, dude.
I don't want to, dude. I just was thinking about like the guy had worked for me for the last 2 years. He's 43 years old. And he has nothing in his life. He has no. I wouldn't say accomplishments because that's kind of putting him down too hard. But like, I guess he has nothing to show for what he's lived for 43 years. Yeah, I feel bad for him because.
Well, those are the medallions, though, that like we have in our current society of how we view things.
Yeah, like there's people that walk around that like have nothing, and they have no drive to come out of the state of like.
Well, there's that.
Of just straight, spinning tires, like they're going nowhere.
Sure. There's that where there's meaninglessness, like on a drastic level, because of probably things in past that had caused damage on a psychological level. And there's a lot of that in mankind all over the place. Like it's a rampant situation. But at the same time, there's also a lot of those individuals that you would think are in that space, but actually had lives before that have had incredibly impactful experiences in their space.
Yeah, that's why I said
still looking like that. It's like walking by a homeless person. Where you think, oh shit.
Yeah, he hasn't been like that forever. Obviously.
No, I don't mean in your particular case, but it's just the possibilities of how psychology can go down the road with experience and how people can be damaged by reality in such a way that they have to shut down essentially to protect themselves.
That's exactly what it is. Reality is hit and he doesn't know where to go.
Exactly, like an experience in a person's life actually has the possibility of having such a large causality in life that you will shut down based on that. And you see this a lot in war veterans, because they have had such traumatic experiences where when you witness them on the way out, they're not actually there anymore. Like they've checked out of reality as a protection mechanism, essentially.
Yeah.
I know a lot about this stuff because my mother is a therapist that had dealt with all of the, Iraq War and all of the past wars.
My girlfriend's mom is a therapist.
It's interesting to hear stories and actually witness people going through that stuff, because you can see people that are like really individuals going in, and then if you're lucky enough to see both sides of it, you're like, holy shit, what happened,
Exactly.
Something really terrible must have happened because I can't even see who you used to be anymore. You're gone. Like, you're not the same person anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how it is. Like, he used to be, I would still put him on the level. Like, this dude was like a pro skateboarder, man. And some people never reach like the potential that they thought they could, and that can crush people sometimes. Like,
yeah,
like he thought at the age of 15 that he was going to be a pro skateboarder like for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Well, that thing where you have an expectation of a realization of a dream is a difficult reality to live out. I've known a lot of people who have had very definite dreams that you knew as friends,
Yeah.
It's like this person, he's gearing up towards this, you know what I mean?
I made Robin.
And I know a couple of people like that.
He has a definite trajectory. He's decided that the accomplishment of his life is here, and I actually know what it is. And it's kind of funny to witness lifetimes of that go down, especially if they're unaccomplished lifetimes. Because it can be a lot of tragedy and misery along the way.
I know, and it's really sad when some of those same people that you say, they have that dream, sometimes they don't even realize that dream. Like, they have the potential, but they never use it. Like, I had a friend who
everybody, including ourselves.
Sure, but I mean,
of course, but
in like an actual sense for some people, where they have an actual life goal which is very tactile in some individuals. Like, I find it sort of in the mid-intelligence category to be more profound because they find gratification from a simple journey like that, and the accomplishment of arriving at a goal is like I don't know if it's just sort of something that's sort of indoctrinated into us to like think that way, but on some levels I think it's just this like hero journey where you make this idea for what you could be at the end of a journey, and you make a goal for yourself, which is like an end point.
Yeah.
Which is kind of tragic in some ways if you think about it, because it means if you accomplish your goal, you have to retire. Which is fine. But it's worse, I guess, if you make a very tactile goal, like I'm gonna be a soccer star, and I'm gonna have a career of 20 years, or I'm gonna drive a NASCAR. You know, like
make a bowl of ramen. I succeeded.
Yeah. Well, that's a great. You're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, you can't fail.
The problem is the guys that I've seen fall from glory are the ones that dream big and fall hard.
Oh, dude, they fall so hard, don't they? I mean, I've seen kids who go from like top goal scorer on every hockey team they've ever been on to like schizophrenic.
Yeah. I guess they're a life. I guess they're a big
to
watch. Well, yeah, certainly.
Because
there are big life lessons there for everybody, apparently.
Well, don't do drugs, kids.
Well, if that's the cause.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of them
that's why I said
fall from grace without any of that.
Well, and that's why I said, it's even worse when you see somebody's potential from the outside, but they don't see it themselves.
But sometimes you just fail.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's the way it goes sometimes, but like...
But it's important, like, it's funny that you said, like, okay, as a result of a fall that hard, your mental stability is then in question.
Yeah.
And I always found it a great irony from the childhood that I had, seeing many, many heroes going to fight and die for their countries, and then being sort of pretty passively disrespected in the end and basically pushed aside on a pretty large level,
Yeah.
Where
It's
people...
the one thing that gets to me in life, like, rom-coms and all that shit, doesn't bother me. Like fucking The Notebook. I don't give a fuck about that. But like seeing soldiers, like, they come back and they're fucking cast aside by society. That shit gets to me.
Like The Notebook, the movie.
Yeah. I didn't catch the first part of what you said. I caught the second part.
I said like rom-coms and like The Notebook. That shit doesn't bother me.
Oh yeah, sure. No, I mean, you always feel it when you see it. I think every human does.
I mean, come on, you can't watch The Notebook and think like, I mean, I've watched it with my girlfriend, and it's like, that shit's ridiculous. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You ever see that movie where that guy fell in love with his iPhone?
No.
It was like, there was a movie where this guy fell in love with his iPhone. And, yeah.
Oh, wait. Isn't it with Joaquin Phoenix? Is that the one?
I don't know. It was a dumb movie that fucking like capitalized on like the whole like Siri trend, and like
Right back.
I think it came out like 2012, 2013. Yeah, and like
Did it have like a pink cover?
I think, but like apparently in the movie it was like a widespread like issue in the movie, like thousands of men across the country are falling in love with their iPhone voices, and so like at the end of the movie, the voices became like sentient, and they just kind of like left the phone. Also, at one point in the movie, it is heavily implied that he has sex with the phone.
Yeah.
I don't know how. But
well, on the tangent of
Like
weird...
put into the earbud hole.
On the tangent of weird movies, have you guys seen Rubber?
Rubber.
Rubber.
Flubber?
I was gonna say Flubber, but
Dude, if
Not
you
one of
guys
Ron's
have
best.
Netflix,
Nope.
or who knows where you can find it, but if you just search the movie Rubber, it's literally a movie about a tire that kills people.
Like a horror movie? Where there's like this build-up
No,
music?
it's,
Like
it's total, like, seriousness.
Dude, I've seen that.
Dude.
What?
Like, Static. This movie is great. From a, like, independent film, like, just weird shit that, I don't know.
that's what it reminds me of. Have you guys seen that movie Black Sheep?
My nephew recommended that to me like 3 years ago or something. We watched it.
You find yourself, you're like, what the fuck? And then you watch it and you're like, what the fuck?
Well, it's
Then you get it, right? Like,
Then you get it.
it's
Yeah.
it's like a little bit on the
Well, there's
it's on the Stanley Kubrick side of like, let's explore the emotion of this.
I mean, there's a huge amount of symbolism in it. I think.
maybe you're just looking too far into it.
I mean,
No, dude, you have to watch it.
Yeah,
But dude, it's like cars kill people.
exactly.
So I don't know.
No, you're on the right path. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. The opening scene is great.
So how does a tire kill people? Does it like wrap around them and like
No, dude.
it just fucking smokes them? For...
Fucking telepathic.
What?
It's fucking amazing.
Like it like kills them with
It
like.
fucking blows people up.
My recollection of it, because it was a long time ago, is that it's like actually more like an AI.
Yeah.
Were you guys talking like the
It's
tire
more
movie
like
still?
it's more like the tire is just like conscious, I guess.
Yeah, it has a consciousness.
Is it meant to be like a tongue-in-cheek like parody of a horror movie, or
No,
Could be.
I don't know.
Don't know.
did they just like see like did they just like hear about like the Le Mans disaster and then just like, you know what? What if that tire had a life?
There's actually an engine and transmission.
Oh yeah.
and pieces of body parts like aluminum.
It would be it would be more comical if you started the movie by showing that scene and then just having cartoon versions of each piece of that car like talking to each other afterwards. Be like, son of a bitch, what just happened? We just wrecked everybody.
You hear about like there's like this one like there's like a car that anybody ever like watch Rob Dyke? Because he had like you talked about this in an episode.
I think I have watched some of his stuff.
But
He's a
there's
seriously strange guy, right?
yeah. There was
Rob
this
Dyke.
Rob Dyke. Yeah, he does like horror kind of stuff and like weird stuff. But he was talking about like this. There was this car that like somebody bought it.
Yeah. That's the
And that car looks fucking. I almost did sinister again. But I think that's the word to use. That car looks sinister. You'll die if you fucking drive it. He's like, oh, forget it. And then he wrecks the car. And then
Christing, right?
What's his name's car? The fucking actor.
Christing, isn't it?
Who?
I think
The car's name, yeah.
No, it was a Porsche Spider.
Shit. Did you just wake up one morning?
Oh, the other one. I thought that was a real life story.
Yeah, no, it is a real life story. It's a story. I
Yeah.
forget. Oh man, it's Static. Who's the actor in the 50s that like died at like 24, and he made like 2 movies, but he's like famous because he was like the ultimate cool guy.
I'll have to think on that one. 24. A young death.
The James Dean.
But yeah, like
You know what? No. Are you talking in like way in the past or like recent?
Yeah, it was James Dean. Died in 1955.
Okay.
His car, I think his car was called. It was a Porsche Spider, and it was like it's like cursed or something.
Yeah, like he wrecked it, and then like parts from the car that were left that were
yeah.
still functional were like sold to like different, like other people, and added to like different cars. And every single one of those cars that had like a part, like even like something so small as like a little
Did you guys
screw
ever,
or something, crashed and the driver
ever
died.
see that Twilight episode? Where there was a guitar that did the same thing in the music industry. Like everybody who took possession of the guitar became a famous rock star and like was influential in their time, but they all either died miserably or, committed suicide, or basically all negative ends. That was a great episode. It was part of the remake of the series, which was like, I don't know, 1998 probably. I'll see if I can find the actual name of the episode because it's actually a great watch.
I always thought the episode stuck with me the most was the original one where they were operating on this chick's face, and it was like, oh, you're incredibly disfigured. Like, there's, fuck, I forget what like she got in an accident, and they reconstructed her face, but it was like so disfigured that they were like warning her like you're gonna be so ugly and shit. And then when she takes off the bandages, she's like this gorgeous blonde chick. And the people who take off, like the doctors, take off their masks, and they're the ugly fucking pig people.
Oh,
dude, I had a momentary strange YouTube synchronicity. You were talking about disfigurement and then pig people, and then there was this video which is top 10 over-the-top villain deaths, and I think it's a cover of that scene in the Mars footage from Total Recall where the dude's fucking eyes like explode out of his face.
Yeah.
Damn
Well, I guess the topic is shifting quickly.
Yep.
Well, you can reorient it.
If you have a time machine, name 3 dates. Go. Dates and month to the month.
Dates?
Dates that you'd go to. For me, I think it would be my number one would be Christmas 1945. And drive to New York. That'd be one for me.
That's a trip.
Dude, I fucking love watching World War II stuff. I would love to go. I don't know if I would love
To
it,
war?
but I would like to go
Nah.
experience that time period.
Yeah, the late 40s and early 50s.
I think what that is that probably all of us were actually there.
No, I wasn't there.
Yeah, I don't know. Just I don't like. I just watch all that stuff with like so much intent.
It's a pretty impactful thing in our psyche. I always wondered about it.
Have you seen The World's Greatest Raid?
Yeah.
Narrated by Jeremy Clarkson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a oh shit, what was the base?
It was
It's a sub pen.
the sub pen with the ship pen.
And they wanted to get
They had to destroy
Saint
the
Nazaire.
Tirpitz.
I knew it was in Nazaire. Saint Nazaire.
They had to destroy it so the Tirpitz couldn't repair itself.
Yeah.
Ah, the Tirpitz. That's a crazy story.
Yeah, I watched a documentary on that after you told me about it.
What was the one oh the Graf Spree, wasn't that the one that parked in Argentina or something like that?
What did you think about that, Nono, after watching that?
Watching what?
That whole story of how the Tirpitz went down, like that whole thing.
I thought it was amazing. Like the fact that Germany was able to make a ship like that after all the shit they had been through after World War I, and like, I mean, granted they only built like one of the damn big things, but
Wasn't it the Tirpitz and the Bismarck?
Yeah.
The pocket
Two
battleships or whatever?
Yeah, but they were like in their time. they were like, that was like it. Like they were like super ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, their very existence and how little they got out of them just goes to show how obsolete the battleship was in World War II.
But that's only because of how it went
Aircraft.
down, right?
Well, it was an aircraft in general.
Because even Churchill, and not only Churchill, but the I forget his name, but the director of the Air Force in Britain said
Bomber Command or the Fighter Command.
Fighter Command. Do you know what his name is?
Nellis.
Regardless.
Bomber Ellis.
Regardless, he said, and it's why the mission of that went down the way it did, is like if those ships in this war are not sunk, essentially, we will lose. Like it was an outright statement that the power of singularly those two ships, if unchecked, would sway the entirety of the war.
Yeah.
And I just found that like insane to think like that a single weapon of war, I mean exactly the same way that the dropping the bombs in Japan had the same psychological effect. Like it was so intensely in the minds of the British Air Force and Navy at the time that if they didn't catch them, if they allowed the Bismarck to roll unchecked into the Atlantic and the Tirpitz was allowed to lay in its slumber until it wanted to exit, like it literally could have changed everything. And it's just kind of funny to hear people talk in the past in those terms because we have no understanding of like how that would have worked out. But if you look at even like the U-boat situation at the time,
I think if
how
Germany
they
put
were just
more
like,
resources into your U-boats, I think they would have done better.
they would, yeah, sure, they would have. But if there would have been direct contact with any of those boats, like I almost feel like it's like divine intervention that the Bismarck sunk the way it was.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at that story, it's like
The Bismarck
dude, the
was
fucking luck. Like
they got so lucky.
They just glanced the rudder and
that ship
took it
could
out.
have destroyed every fucking ship in that fleet without even blinking an eye. But they got super lucky, and the thing started turning in circles, and it allowed them to just take pot shots at it.
Yep. And the Tirpitz only lasted what, like 2 weeks?
Well, the Tirpitz was a little bit of a more interesting thing.
Was that the one that was trapped in Norwegian fjord?
Yeah.
It wasn't trapped. That's where
they
it
put
was.
it there for a reason.
Yeah, that's where it was. But so the really interesting part of that is that historians think that there was a spy somewhere in the midst
Oh, probably.
that actually was able to make that happen the way it did.
Well, the Norwegians were telling everyone where it was.
Yeah, so there was definitely something going on there that allowed that situation to play out the way it did. Because it took them... How many tries was it? No. Like, even in that documentary, what they thought was, like, the amount of effort on the Air Force side to actually even attempt to sink it. It's like they tried over and over and over, like, just repeatedly so many times.
They made a special bomb for it too.
Yeah, which was like the largest bomb that was dropped
1,000-pound bomb.
Yeah, it was the largest bomb that was dropped from any airplane at the time, and that ultimately was a design from an English engineer, which it wasn't a 1,000-pound bomb. It was like a 5,000-pound bomb. It was enormous, and only one of these was able to be carried with the bombers that they were sending north, and they only had 5 of them.
They had a special name for it.
They did.
And
Can't
it was
remember.
a really cool name.
I'm sure it was. But they only had like 5 of them at a time in the waves that they sent up there. And the one that actually sunk it the bombs were so fucking large, apparently, that the shock waves, even from not actually hitting it, was part of the sinking ultimately. Because in the end, only I think one of them actually made a direct hit on it.
1,600-pound armor-piercing bombs.
Yeah, for fuck's sake. Don't they have video of it too?
Yeah. Yeah, they got pictures and video. They got everything.
I love the newsreel music. Dun, 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 dun.
No, that was
Fucking
that was a
Norwegian
very
fjord.
interesting story. Because, like you said, like the whole British Navy and like Air Force were after it, and they couldn't get it.
Well, like, it's something you forget in retrospect, but the Germans pushed them to the brink of, like, the end. Like, the British were really at the end of their wits at one point, you know? Where it was like, either we get this shit done, or we're done. Because the Germans, like, with the U-boat fleet and the might of the Air Force, like, all of that in combination, it was a pretty serious threat to be dealt with. And the Navy threat was that the Tirpitz and the Bismarck, if they were allowed to operate unchecked in the Atlantic, the supply of resources coming from the US to Europe to supply the war would have been completely obliterated. So they just got fucking lucky, basically.
Yeah, but I think I don't know. I think it was the Bismarck, the whole thing, the Bismarck and the Tirpitz, and the amount of effort that the RAF put into sinking both of them and the Royal Navy. Just a big waste of time.
Bismarcky.
If you look at it in retrospect, like, they were just two ships. Like, and compared to that, the entire U-boat fleet, how many ships did those two ships sink?
Yeah, but you would think differently if you look back in time at how battleships like that performed on the open water.
I mean, they could hit things before anyone even knew they were there.
We only say that because we think now battleships are obsolete. But those two ships, in their time, were not even... Like, they were way beyond progressive. Like, if they were...
But they needed to be escorted.
No, they didn't.
Yeah,
the Bismarck was not escorted by any fleet. The Tirpitz was also not escorted by any fleet.
Surface vessels are so vulnerable to both submarines and aircraft.
Sure.
It's sad. Like,
but in their time, those two ships would have been effective if they were operating in the Atlantic. They just never were allowed to. They got in scenarios
because they were easy targets due to the fact that they were surface vessels.
Sure, but you only say that because they never operated out there in the Atlantic.
Yeah. I know.
If they were in the open water and both sides didn't know where they were, they could have run into hundreds of thousands of tons of transport ships and also untold numbers of random other military targets that they would have obliterated because they could sink ships from like such a ridiculous distance compared to the... And they knew that. It was like, our ships cannot range these ships because they can see us from a distance of like a ridiculous quantity higher.
Because Britain was still using World War I ships.
Yeah, they would have gotten their asses handed to them.
I don't know. I think
that's why I think
overwhelmed them. I think the Royal Navy could have overwhelmed them in terms
if
of
they had
numbers.
If they had two more of
but
those same ships, it would have been a different story.
It's something to think about it historically. They did. They got defeated. The Bismarck was sunk with pure luck and numbers and tactical ability, and the Tirpitz was sunk via
overwhelming aerial bombardment.
Well, yeah, but also like an underground element. There were more things going on there because the Tirpitz had its own dedicated air fleet which was meant to respond to any targets coming from the south. And the conspiracy about the whole Tirpitz situation was that there was somebody embedded that kept the fleet that was meant to protect the Tirpitz from ever taking off. That was part of that documentary. They were talking about how that all went down. Because the Tirpitz was up there because it knew of the danger from the midsection. The tactical situation was they were waiting for the time that was right to move out into the open water. And they thought at the time that the fjords up north were probably the safest tactical position to be in, because they didn't really think that the Air Force had a capability of moving that far north.
Yeah, it was almost out of their range. But they were able to... Where did they land?
There was some sort of intermediary space where they had to...
Faroe Islands?
They had to refuel somewhere because it was way the fuck in the middle of nowhere.
And the smoke screens that they put out, that's why it survived for so long, and that's how they got it. They couldn't get the smoke screen out fast enough.
Yeah, they tried dropping bombs on it like multiple times, and it was just covered in clouds. The funny thing, like the story of all the occupants of the Tirpitz, because there were survivors, they were like, we lived like fucking kings up there. Like, you know.
Dude, they were fucking bringing in Norwegian women, and like, they were living the life up there.
What a weird time. Imagine
like,
living
they literally
through all
were
that.
just chilling for like a long ass time.
But because of the profile of both of those ships, everybody that were, you know, sailors on those, they all lived well.
Yeah. But World War II is just such a fucking crazy time with the technology was so primitive compared to today, but then it was like...
I kind of wish...
It was like space shuttle shit.
I know it's like a ridiculous thing to say, but I kind of wish that the simplicity of the ideals played out in World War II, even though they may not even seem what they really were. I wish wars nowadays, if we're at least going to kill each other all the time, would be more black and white like that.
Like guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, well, like how the participants felt
WMDs.
back then, you know? Because certainly all sides felt that they were in the moral right at all times.
To be fair though, the last major conflict was the war in Afghanistan, up until a certain point, until it got out of hand. But like, you guys were attacked, and the world, you know, all your allies got together and went to hunt the Taliban.
Yeah, sure. I
We
guess.
were out to fuck them up.
And
We still are, and it's like, come
yeah,
on.
so, but if you look deeper into that storyline, you'll discover more about what the agendas for wars like those are. And clearly there are agendas in that sector of the world that have been playing themselves out for a long time, right? So
Oil's the biggest one.
it's not so clear cut anymore. You know, it's not like, oh, we're going to fucking kill Nazis.
Yeah, kill.
Yeah, like, oh, are we here to
Nazis.
kill ISIS or get oil? What are we
Yeah.
doing?
Oil.
It's
Oh, when Bush was there.
man, it's a much larger conversation. You're talking
Yeah,
about
I don't want to get on that subject because
No, I don't even mean getting conspiratorial about it all. I mean, really, objectives out there are far-ranging in history. That's what I was alluding to, because if you dig deep into history, there are actual agendas that are still playing themselves out, which have to do with certain parts of the world. And that part of the world is still sought after.
It's all cloak and dagger now. Before it was like, okay, we're just gonna conquer you.
Yeah, dude. Like,
That was simple back then.
It's easier to talk about in the old days in that perspective, but like You know, when you get to the higher rungs of what the tactical strategy is, you're really talking about really complicated things that have been playing themselves out for very long periods of time. And one of the things in that sector of the world, you know, goes back further in time than even World War II. So
it was only like 70, 80 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
And, dude, back on World War II, how the fuck did Japan get so powerful? Like, I don't understand how they decided they were going to be the shit, and then...
They had a head start, dude. They had a head start and no one was expecting it, and they just swooped in and, yeah.
Just look at their warrior culture. Look at the history.
The history of the samurai.
Yeah, exactly. Look at the
defend your honor.
Exactly. There you go. And you know, throw yourself off a cliff if you fail. It was
like if you look at the Pacific War, like once the United States, like once you guys got a foothold. I mean, you lost, or there was like I think the Coral Sea was the first real engagement, and then Midway. So I think Midway was.
Yeah, speaking of battleships.
Yeah.
I mean, for fuck's sake.
The Yamato.
Yeah, but you guys sunk what, like 3 or 4 carriers at Midway, like all the carriers of Pearl Harbor.
Do you know about the fucking storm that took down half of the fucking Pacific Fleet in like 2 days?
No.
That was kind of like some gladiator shit at one point there. In the middle of like the largest part of the spearheading of that operation, where like the largest conflagration of naval might had ever assembled in one place, got like almost annihilated by like some fucking tropical storm, which had nothing to do with the Japanese. They just like walked into that shit, got unlucky, and like 4 aircraft carriers got almost brutally disabled, and like an insane amount of escort carriers and battleships. You guys never heard about that?
I didn't hear about the storm, but I mean, I've followed some of the stories about the aircraft carriers.
I mean, Japan has been saved by typhoons and shit in the past from invaders.
I just thought it was hilarious, though. It was almost like a
goddamn Mongolians.
It was like an ancient story. Like the entire might of our fleet was on their doorstep, and nature like intervened.
It's a divine wind.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this big long documentary about the whole thing. Like, it was a massive casualty situation. Like, it was like several thousand sailors lost in a typhoon, and a bunch of the battleships and carriers came back that like the decks had been ripped in half. Like, this storm was so severe. I'm sure you can find it somewhere.
Typhoon Cobra.
I think it's more like a Japanese build quality problem.
December 1944. Task Force 38 operating 300 miles east of Luzon in the Philippine Sea. Got hit with a storm.
What does it say about casualties? And
790 U.S. fatalities.
790. That seems pretty serious from a storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's hold on one.
But the tactical situation was they were moving into position. The storm.
32 ships were damaged.
And the storm like turned them right around.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching documentaries on like the Guadalcanal and the other island. What's it called?
Okinawa.
Fuck, dude.
Okinawa.
I'm glad I wasn't part of some shit like that.
Dude, like...
Can you imagine being sent to the Pacific Theater and how much of a butchery and fucking barbaric combat that was?
It's kind of worse than...
Imagine
It's
getting
pretty-
chopped down with a fucking katana in like World War II.
Oof.
Like
Well,
that's crazy. Like at least with a gun, it's relatively quick.
Yeah.
that's your imagination speaking there, because frankly, the majority of people butchered on that battlefield were by bullets, but it was just a nasty situation.
Yeah,
well,
but
and then you add
officers-
the Eastern Asia battles that went on, like way up in Laos and all those areas.
But, what's funny is, like, a lot of people talk about World War II missing, like, large cross-sections of the history which are much more consequential. Like, we talk about the American stuff because that's our perspective, right? But if it weren't for certain things that had played themselves out in other theaters of war, the idea of Americans being victorious in World War II would have never even happened. Not even fucking close. And the significance of those events is always downplayed in the history of World War II. And I've always been like, that's kind of weird,
To throw 118 a bone, Japan had to keep, I think, like close to 1 million troops in China for the entirety of the war. Just bogged down, holding the line. That could have been used fighting the Americans.
Yeah.
Just shit like that you never hear about.
I think the most significant events in World War II are not really in the presence of mind of most people. I find that interesting. It's almost like important events all throughout time are always sort of erased by the victors.
That's the way it is.
Which is kind of why, the whole rise of that party in Germany took place. If the fallout
it was a product of Versailles. Treaty
yeah,
of Versailles.
I mean, if the fallout of the previous war, or even the causality of the first one in the first place, had not been so vicious, you wouldn't have had the result which accumulated at the end.
And to be fair, that was just like a sore winner. You didn't need to do that. Like, the Treaty of Versailles was ridiculously unrealistic.
Yeah. But you end up with these financial situations of hyperinflation, of and economies collapsing, and these just terribly suffering situations which you see all over the world.
The Allies learned their lesson, because look at Japan and look at West Germany. After pretty much, like Japan, the post-war miracle in the 50s and 60s, and West Germany fared way better than East Germany, I think it was fair to say.
Well, if you ever talk to them, actually, that were there, you get a little bit of an idea of what that is. Which is not a wonderful...
I have a piece of the Berlin Wall.
Wow, that's cool.
It's in a glass box. That's probably one of those things that I'll keep forever.
Do you guys want to hear a short story of how I came to be as a person?
Oh god, save the graphic details, please.
It's
No, I want
nothing
them all.
graphic. It's just interesting history.
Yeah, there are people under 18 here.
It's just interesting.
I thought your sheeps were counted 118.
Mute your speakers there, 118.
We're talking about World War II here. Come on, guys.